There are two kinds of men the gold rush made. The kind it broke, slowly, quietly, out in the hills where nobody watched. And the kind it turned into something worse than desperate, something calculating. Something that looked at another man's life and saw a number. Dead Rock Gulch, California, March 1852. The kind of place that had appeared overnight and would disappear the same way, leaving nothing behind but rusted pans and shallow graves. 300 men living in tents and mud, and the particular religion of men who believe they are one shovel stroke from everything they ever wanted. Cole Harlan had ridden in 2 days prior on a black stallion that drew looks the way silence draws attention. Not loud, not threatening, just impossible to ignore. Shadow moved through the camp like he owned the ground beneath him, and Cole rode him the way a man rides something he trusts completely. He wasn't there for gold. He was there because a man named Devlin Parrish had put a price on his head, $1,200, payable on delivery. And Dead Rock Gulch was the last place Cole had heard Parrish's name spoken out loud. 4 men in the camp had heard about the $1,200. 4 men had decided that was enough reason to try. Gold makes fools brave. Cole had seen it before. The camp had no real center, just a loose sprawl of canvas tents, wooden sluice boxes, and the constant sound of water and men working against it. The creek ran brown with disturbed earth. The air smelled of wood smoke, wet wool, and the faint chemical bite of mercury used to separate gold from gravel. Cole moved through it on foot, Shadow trailing loose behind him. No lead rope, just proximity. The stallion picking his way between tent pegs and rusted equipment with the quiet intelligence of an animal that had learned to read terrain the way his rider read men. The camp watched Cole the way camps always did. Not with hostility. Not yet. With the particular attention given to strangers who don't explain themselves. A man riding a horse that fine into a place this rough either had something worth protecting or something worth taking. In Dead Rock Gulch in the spring of 1852, most men assumed the latter. Cole found the assay office near the creek bend, a wooden structure more optimistic than its surroundings, with a hand-painted sign and a door that didn't quite fit its frame. Inside, a thin man with ink-stained fingers looked up from a ledger. "Looking for a man named Devlin Parrish," Cole said. The thin man's pen stopped moving. "Don't know that name," he said. Cole looked at him for a moment, the way a man looks at a wrong answer. "I'll ask around," Cole said, and left. Outside, Shadow had positioned himself beside the office wall, out of the main foot traffic, watching the camp with ears forward. Cole put a hand on the stallion's neck without breaking stride, the brief contact of 2 creatures that had been through enough together that words between them would have been redundant, and kept walking. He had taken 30 steps when he became aware of being followed. Not 1 man, not 2, 4. They were spread out, not amateurs then. Men who understood that a target facing one threat instinctively turns his back on another. Men who had thought about this, at least a little. Cole didn't turn around. He kept walking toward the open ground near the creek. He chose the terrain, not them. The open ground near the creek was exactly what it looked like. Flat, exposed, no cover for 30 yards in any direction. Cole had chosen it deliberately. In an ambush, cover favors the attackers. Open ground equalizes. A man who knows what he's doing prefers to be seen coming from every direction over being cornered in a space someone else controls. He stopped at the creek's edge and turned around. The 4 men fanned out as they approached, maintaining their spread, 10 feet between each man, a rough semicircle with the creek at Cole's back. They stopped 15 feet away. The one in front was named Garrett. Cole didn't know that yet, but he would. Garrett was broad through the shoulders, with a beard going gray at the edges, and the kind of stillness that didn't come from being calm. It came from being practiced. He'd done this before. His hand wasn't near his gun yet. That was a detail worth noting. To Garrett's left stood a lean, red-haired man with a nervous energy that expressed itself in small, constant movements, weight shifting, fingers flexing, jaw working. Dangerous in a different way, unpredictable. To the right, two men who moved and dressed similarly enough that Cole marked them as having ridden together a long time. Partners. They would act in coordination. 4 men. 2 amateurs playing at professionalism, 1 genuine threat, and 1 variable. Cole had 2 seconds to complete that inventory. He used 1.5.
$1,200, Garrett said. His voice was conversational, almost friendly.
Parrish is paying $1,200 for you. Dead weight the same as live. Cole looked at him. Parrish send you? Parrish put up the money, Garrett said. We made our own decision. Cole nodded slowly, looked at each man in turn, not a challenge, an inventory. The red-haired man's fingers had stopped moving. The 2 partners had gone very still. Gold makes fools brave, Cole said quietly. Garrett smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. That supposed to scare us? No, Cole said. It's just what I've observed. The red-haired man laughed first. It was the laugh of someone who needed reassurance and was manufacturing it out loud. Cole noted that too. You're outnumbered 4 to 1, the red-haired man said. Alone. Back to a creek. And you're quoting philosophy. He shook his head. Parrish said you were supposed to be dangerous. Parrish was right, Cole said. The laughter stopped. Garrett studied Cole the way a man studies something that doesn't add up. He'd been in enough of these moments to know that the men who were afraid acted afraid. They talked too much, moved too much, found reasons to delay. The men who were dangerous did something else entirely. They waited. Cole was waiting. Funny thing about Parrish's money, Cole said without taking his eyes off Garrett. Man who put a price on someone else's head generally has a reason. You boys ask what yours was? Doesn't matter, Garrett said. It does, actually. Cole shifted his weight slightly, not toward his gun, just a repositioning, the movement of a man settling in. Parrish has been dead for 6 weeks. Rode into a river crossing outside Sacramento and didn't come out the other side. His foreman told me personally. He paused. Nobody's paying $1,200 for anything. The 2 partners exchanged a look. The red-haired man's mouth opened slightly. Garrett didn't move, didn't react. His eyes stayed on Cole with the same measured attention they'd held since the beginning. You're lying, Garrett said. Check Sacramento, Cole said. His foreman's name is Alves, Portuguese man, scar on his left hand. He'll tell you the same thing I just did. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence from what had preceded it. The first silence had been the tension of men preparing to act. This one was the silence of men recalculating. The 2 partners were recalculating visibly. The red-haired man was recalculating loudly. His breathing had changed. Garrett was not recalculating. Garrett was watching Cole with the eyes of a man who had already decided and was simply waiting for the right moment. Cole saw it. He'd been watching for exactly that. Every standoff has a moment where the outcome becomes fixed, where what happens next is no longer a question of decision, but of execution. Most men never recognize that moment when it arrives. They're still in the conversation, still believing that words are doing something useful, when the thing has already been decided by forces underneath the words. Cole recognized it. It arrived when Garrett's weight shifted, barely perceptible, a redistribution toward his shooting side that had nothing to do with comfort and everything to do with preparation. Not a tell exactly, a commitment, the body announcing what the mind had already settled. Cole had identified Garrett as the primary threat in the first 10 seconds. What he hadn't anticipated was the red-haired man moving first. Not from courage, from panic, which in a gunfight is sometimes faster than courage and always less accurate. The red-haired man's hand went for his iron with the frantic speed of someone who had convinced himself that moving first was the same as surviving. It wasn't. Cole drew and fired in a single motion that was less about speed than about the complete absence of wasted movement. No hesitation, no adjustment, no second thought. The red-haired man's shot went wide into the creek bank. He sat down hard in the mud and didn't get up. Cole was already turning. The two partners drew together, coordinated, as he'd expected. 2 shots, 2 beats apart, the second arriving before the first had finished its consequence. One partner dropped. The second stumbled back, his gun falling, clutching his shoulder, alive, conscious, no longer a factor. 3 seconds. Cole turned to Garrett. Garrett had his gun out. They stood 12 feet apart, both armed, both still. Shadow, 40 yards back at the assay office wall, had gone completely motionless, the particular stillness of an animal that has learned that some moments require absolute silence. "You knew Parrish was dead," Cole said. It wasn't a question. Garrett's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I knew," he said.
Then why? Cole said.
Garrett didn't answer immediately. The gun in his hand was steady, the steadiness of a man who'd held iron in situations like this before and hadn't flinched. That steadiness told Cole something. So did the fact that Garrett hadn't fired when he had the opening, a half-second window when Cole was turning from the partners. He'd had the shot. He hadn't taken it. $1,200 is $1,200, Garrett said finally. Parrish being dead doesn't change what the number is. Someone else pick up the contract? Does it matter? Cole considered this. It matters to me. Garrett looked at him with an expression that was almost, not quite, but almost, respect. Man named Holloway. Runs the land office in Stockton. Parrish owed him considerably. Holloway decided collecting you was a reasonable substitute for collecting the debt. Cole filed the name. Stockton. Land office. A different problem for a different day, or perhaps the same problem wearing a different face. "You're good," Cole said. "Better than the others." "I know," Garrett said, without arrogance, just fact. "Which is why I'm asking instead of shooting." Something shifted in Garrett's expression. Not much. Enough. "Asking what?" Garrett said. "Walk away," Cole said. "Tell Holloway you couldn't find me. Tell him I rode north. Tell him whatever keeps him from sending someone else for the next 6 months." He paused. "I'll be done with whatever I'm doing in Stockton by then. And when I'm done with Holloway, there's no contract left to honor." Garrett was quiet for a long moment. The wounded partner behind him made a sound. Pain, not threat. "Your man needs a doctor," Cole said. "There's one in the camp, name's Pritchard. He's competent." Garrett's eyes didn't leave Cole's. "You know the camp doctor's name?" "I know most things about a place before I ride into it," Cole said. Another silence. Longer. Garrett lowered his gun. Not all the way, just enough. The gesture of a man who hadn't surrendered, but had made a decision. "Holloway's going to be a problem," Garrett said. "He already is," Cole said. "That's why I'm going to Stockton." Garrett holstered his gun and moved to the wounded partner without another word. Cole watched him go, then turned back to the creek. The red-haired man was where he'd fallen, face up in the mud at the water's edge. The partner who dropped was 10 feet to the left, still. Cole checked each one the way you check such things, quickly, without ceremony. The confirmation that what had happened had in fact happened. He didn't linger. The surviving partner was sitting up now, back against a sluice box, left hand pressed hard against his right shoulder. Garrett crouched beside him, saying something low that Cole couldn't hear. The man's face was gray with pain, but his eyes were tracking. He'd live. The shoulder would never be quite right again, but he'd live. Cole holstered his gun and walked back toward Shadow. He didn't feel triumph. He hadn't felt triumph after one of these in a long time. What he felt was closer to a door closing. Necessary. Final. Not clean. Shadow turned his head as Cole approached, the same dark, steady attention the horse always gave after gunfire. Not distress, not relief. Just the confirmation of something known. Still here, still standing. "Good," Cole said quietly. He gathered the reins and led the stallion away from the creek, moving through the camp at an unhurried pace. The watching men parted without being asked. Nobody spoke. At the camp's edge, Cole stopped at a water trough and let Shadow drink. He refilled his canteen, checked the cinch. The ordinary maintenance of travel, performed with the same attention whether the previous 10 minutes had contained violence or not. The thin man from the assay office appeared at a careful distance. "You were asking about Devlin Parrish," he said. "I was," Cole said. "Parrish used to run supplies through Dead Rock twice a month. Stopped coming about 6 weeks ago." The thin man paused. "His partner, Holloway, took over the supply contract. Comes through himself now, first of every month." Cole looked at him. "When's the first of the month?" "4 days." Cole nodded. "I'll be back in 3. You know what I keep turning over about that moment? Garrett had the shot. Clean window, Cole mid-turn, 2 men down and the odds suddenly different. Any man running purely on survival instinct pulls the trigger right there. Garrett didn't, and Cole saw that. Saw it and made a decision based on it, not mercy exactly. More like recognition. 2 professionals reading each other across 12 feet of creek mud, deciding the situation didn't require what both of them had been prepared to do. That's a rarer thing than most Western stories let on. Most men in Dead Rock Gulch that spring were running on gold fever and desperation. Garrett was running on something colder, something more honest. Cole respected that, even aimed at him. He'd been wrong before. Not often, but the times he had been, he'd carried them the same way he was carrying this one. Not with regret exactly, with attention. The kind you give to things that teach you something you didn't ask to learn. Garrett had been the variable he'd read correctly. The red-haired man had been the one he hadn't. The panic moving faster than the calculation. The gun coming out before the recalculation had time to finish. Cole had been ready for it, but ready wasn't the same as certain. He filed that away. Shadow covered ground at the long, unhurried stride he used for distance, eating miles without announcing it. The movement of an animal built for endurance rather than spectacle. Cole let him find his pace and rode with the ease of a man who'd spent more hours in the saddle than under any roof he'd ever slept beneath. He thought about Holloway. A man who'd converted a debt into a contract on a human life was a man who believed the world was a ledger and people were entries in it. Cole had known that kind before. They were generally more dangerous than hired guns because they never got their own hands dirty and never ran out of other men's hands to use. Stockton required a different kind of care than Dead Rock. Dead Rock had been open ground and 4 men he could read. Stockton would be a building, a desk, a man with legal paper and the habit of using it. A rider passed going east, a supply wagon, 2 men on the bench, neither looking at Cole with any recognition. He watched them until they rounded the bend. Shadow's ears flicked back once, then forward. Cole patted the stallion's neck. "I know," he said. "Me too." He rode on. But somewhere west in Stockton, a lamp was burning in a land office, and a man named Holloway was waiting for news that would never arrive the way he expected. Cole arrived in Stockton at dusk and did not go directly to the land office. He found a livery 2 streets back, saw Shadow settled with water and grain, the horse accepting the unfamiliar stall with the patience of an animal that had learned to trust Cole's judgment about where they stopped, and then walked back to the main street and stood across from the land office for an hour. The building was solid brick, 2 windows facing the street, a lamp burning inside past the hour when most offices closed. A man's silhouette moved behind the frosted glass twice in the 40 minutes Cole watched. Unhurried, comfortable, the movements of someone who worked late because he preferred his office to his home. One entrance visible from the street. Cole circled the block once, quietly, and confirmed a back entrance opening to an alley. Unlocked from the gap at the frame. A man who controlled the land office in a growing city trusted his position more than his locks. He noted who walked past and who slowed. A deputy crossed the main street at 8 o'clock without looking at the land office. Their relationship was either professional distance or deliberate ignorance. In a city building itself on contested claims and transferred titles, The land office and the law had a complicated arrangement. Cole had seen it before in other towns. He went back to the livery, checked on Shadow, and sat on a hay bale eating hardtack until the street quieted. At 9:30, he walked back. The lamp in the land office was still burning. He crossed the street, opened the front door without knocking, and stepped inside. Holloway was at his desk, a heavy-set man in his 50s with the groomed appearance of someone who understood that presentation was its own form of authority. He looked up from his ledger, and in the space of 2 seconds went through recognition, calculation, and something working very hard to be composure. "Mr. Harlan," he said. His voice was steadier than his eyes. "You know who I am," Cole said. "I've seen a description." Cole crossed to the desk and sat down, uninvited, unhurried. "Then you know why I'm here." Holloway's hands were flat on the desk, a man making sure his hands were visible. "Whatever arrangement existed between myself and certain parties in Dead Rock. 4 men, Cole said, 2 of them dead." Holloway went very still. "One with a shoulder that won't be right again," Cole continued. "One who walked away with a story to tell you." He leaned forward slightly. "I'm telling you in person so there's no confusion about what actually happened." "What do you want?" Holloway said. The composure had simplified into something more direct. Fear does that to a man, strips away the language he uses for other situations and leaves the plain question underneath. "Parrish owed you money," Cole said. "Whatever he owed, I'll see it paid. Not by me, I didn't know it. But I know people who settle debts as a matter of business." He held Holloway's gaze. "In exchange, my name stops being attached to any number on any paper you control. The contract closes. Permanently." Holloway looked at him for a long time. "And if I decline?" Cole looked at him the way he'd looked at Garrett across 12 feet of creek mud. Quiet. Patient. The way a man looks at a variable he's already accounted for. "Then we're having a different conversation," he said. Holloway looked down at his hands, then back up. "I'd need a name," he said finally. "Someone I can verify." Cole took a piece of paper from the desk, wrote a name and a street in San Francisco, and slid it back. "He'll expect you. The amount Parrish owed, nothing more." Holloway looked at the paper for a long moment, the deliberation of a man building a bridge between what he wanted and what he could tell himself he'd been forced to accept. He folded it and put it in his breast pocket. Cole stood and put on his hat. "One more thing," he said at the door. Holloway looked up. "The supply contract through Dead Rock Gulch, the one Parrish had and you took over. Those men are working 16-hour days in water cold enough to stop a heart. The supplies they're getting are underweight and overpriced. I checked the assay office records." Holloway said nothing. "Fix it," Cole said. "Not because I'll be watching, because those men are working too hard to be cheated on top of it." He left before Holloway could answer. The man in San Francisco was named Correa. He worked out of a counting house on the waterfront that smelled of salt and old paper, and he had the precise, unhurried manner of someone who had spent 30 years handling money that didn't belong to him, without once being accused of mishandling it. Cole found him the following morning, before the docs were fully awake. "Parrish is dead," Cole said without preamble. "I need it settled through a third party. Man named Holloway in Stockton will come to you." Correa looked at him over the rim of reading glasses. "The amount? Whatever Parrish's ledger shows. I'll cover it." "That's a generous arrangement for a debt that isn't yours." "It closes a problem," Cole said. "That's what it's worth." Cole found him the following morning, before the docs were fully awake. "Parrish is dead," Cole said without preamble. "I need it settled through a third party. Man named Holloway in Stockton will come to you." Correa looked at him over the rim of reading glasses. "The amount? Whatever Parrish's ledger shows. I'll cover it." "That's a generous arrangement for a debt that isn't yours." "It closes a problem," Cole said. "That's what it's worth." Outside, the waterfront was coming alive. Dock workers, supply wagons, the particular noise of a city that ran on cargo and never fully slept. Shadow was at the post where Cole had left him, watching the morning activity with the calm attention of a horse that had stood in stranger places and found them all equally manageable. Cole pulled himself into the saddle. Her debt would be paid. The contract would close. Holloway would either fix the supply weights or he wouldn't, but he'd said it, and that was the only thing available to him at that moment. Some things you say because you mean them. Some things you say because the man across from you needs to hear that someone noticed. Cole had noticed. He rode north. Here's the part that gets me about Holloway. Cole could have walked in there and made it simple. A man who just left 2 bodies in a mining camp had every kind of leverage you can imagine. He could have taken the debt, burned the contract, ridden out. Instead, he negotiated, offered a solution that cost him something: money, connections, favors with a man in San Francisco who now held a piece of Cole's business. Arranged for the debt to be paid through channels that had nothing to do with threats. And then, on the way out the door, told the man to stop cheating miners. Not demanded, not threatened. Said it like a fact that Holloway would now have to live with. I think about what kind of man does that. Rides out of a land office after settling his own contract and spends his last 30 seconds in the room thinking about 300 men working cold water for short-weighted supplies. I don't have a clean answer, but I think it matters that he said it. He rode north out of the bay as the morning fog began to thin. He thought about the red-haired man. Panic and speed. A combination that ended men with regularity in this country and would continue to long after Cole was gone. The man hadn't been evil. He'd been frightened and had chosen the wrong expression for it. The gold rush was full of men like that. Men who'd come west with a reasonable dream and found the dream required them to become something they hadn't planned for. He thought about the 2 partners. One dead, one alive somewhere with a shoulder that would never be quite right again. They'd ridden together, acted together, and paid separate prices for the same decision. That was the thing about decisions made in pairs. The consequence never distributed evenly. Shadow moved beneath him, easy and settled, the long stride of a horse that had been to a city and was returning to open ground. His ears were forward. The fog was lifting. Gold makes fools brave. He turned it over one more time. Gold didn't make fools brave. It made brave men foolish. Took men who might have been something, careful, patient, worth knowing, and fed them a number large enough to make them forget what they actually knew. 4 men had proven it in Dead Rock Gulch, 2 of them permanently, one with a shoulder that would never be quite right, and one who had known all along and come anyway. 3 miles north of Stockton, Cole saw the rider. Coming south on the same road, moving at a pace that wasn't hurried and wasn't casual. The pace of a man with a destination and a timeline that left no room for dawdling, but no reason to arrive breathless. Cole recognized the set of the shoulders before he could make out the face. Garrett. They closed the distance between them at the combined speed of 2 horses, and neither man altered course. They met in the middle of the road and stopped, facing each other across 10 feet of dusty California morning. Garrett looked at Cole. Cole looked at Garrett. Neither of them spoke. Garrett's expression carried something that wasn't quite acknowledgement and wasn't quite respect. Something between the 2 that didn't have a name in the language men like them used with each other. His right shoulder was square, easy, no tension in the gun hand. A man not here for that. Cole gave him a single nod. Garrett returned it. Then Garrett touched his horse's flank with one heel and rode south, and Cole rode north, and the distance between them opened back up the way it had closed, steadily, without drama, until the sound of the other man's horse was gone entirely. Shadow's ears tracked Garrett until he was out of range, then settled forward again. Cole didn't look back. There were men you cross paths with in this country who left a mark without meaning to. Not enemies, not allies. Just people whose competence or honesty or particular way of inhabiting the world made an impression that stayed. Garrett was that kind of man. Cole hoped he stayed out of the kind of work that ended men early. He didn't expect it, but he hoped it. He rode on. Here's what stays with me about this one. Not the gunfight at the creek, not the negotiation in Stockton, not even the thing with Correa in San Francisco. It's the boy at the hitching post. Cole Harlan rides out of a land office where he's just closed a contract on his own life, crosses the street to a horse that a dozen people that day had admired and none dared touch, and takes 30 seconds to let a 12-year-old kid say hello. "Ask him," Cole says. And the boy asks the horse. That's the detail that tells you who a man actually is. Not the gunfight, not the negotiation. The 30 seconds when nobody was watching and nothing was at stake, and he made room for something small and good anyway. Gold makes fools brave and brave men foolish. The rush proved that 10,000 times in 10,000 camps across California. Cole Harlan rode through all of it and came out the other side still knowing the difference between what mattered and what didn't. That's rarer than any vein they ever pulled out of those hills. If this one found you, you're exactly who Silver Dollar is for. Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from today. Brazil, Nigeria, India, Philippines, Mexico, South Africa. Every corner of the world that loves a story where the ground is hard and the stakes are real. If Cole Harlan's story is hitting the way it should, subscribe, because there's more where this came from. More towns, more choices, more mornings where the only sound is a black stallion moving through open country and a man deciding what kind of man he's going to be today. The frontier is long. We're just getting started. This is Frank Ardell for Silver Dollar.